When are you really fluent in a language? What does fluency really mean, and how do you get there as fast as possible? These are questions I get all the time in the comments, or rather, I get people who are very confused about all these things. People seem to think fluency means something that it doesn't really mean. For example, I got a comment the other day by someone who claimed to be a native English speaker, but then his writing was so terrible. And he claimed to speak 6 more languages. So, I mean, I don't know a single native English speaker who speaks 6 more languages. I don't know. But in any case, he said my English is not fluent. And I responded saying that I've got a C2 CP certificate, which is the highest, to my knowledge, the highest level certificate you can get in British English, right? And he said, well, it doesn't matter, you're not fluent. I'm native and I can tell you're not fluent. And I was like, mate, you don't know what fluent means. You don't need to be a certain level to be fluent, right? You don't need to even be C1 to be fluent. I've got a C2 certificate in English, but I was fluent long before that. And I was fluent long before I got my C1, and that was ages ago as well. Fluency means being able to understand the language and being able to communicate effectively. You're able to speak the language comfortably. You don't struggle to create sentences. You don't hesitate. You have a decent pronunciation. But pronunciation is not that big of a problem, really, because fluency is a different thing, right? You can have terrible pronunciation and still be fluent. Like a lot of people in certain countries, they're fluent, but they're not accurate and they don't have good pronunciation, right? When someone when they look at your English in a level test or you're speaking, they look at 3 things, right? Fluency, accuracy, and pronunciation. And fluency is the ability to form sentences, to speak without interruption, basically, and without running out of words. If you think like you're trying to speak, but that's not fluent, right? If you can just speak all day and you don't struggle to form sentences and you know the vocab that you need to use, then you are fluent. If you take a lot of time to think before forming a sentence and your sentences, you don't finish half your sentences because you don't know the vocab, or you really struggle to put a sentence together, then you're not fluent. That's what fluency means, right? And you can have terrible pronunciation and terrible accuracy, but be fluent. Like you make lots and lots of mistakes, and your pronunciation sounds horrible, but you're still fluent. Or you can be not fluent and be really accurate and have good pronunciation. A lot of people who are perfectionists, who mostly study, they do a lot of grammar studying and things like that, but they don't speak to people in real life. And I know a lot of those people, the studious types who in school, they were really good at studying everything. And they always got good grades in English, but then they couldn't actually have a conversation with foreign students because they weren't fluent. They were good at grammar exercises and reading, but not at speaking, right? So they could write well, but they couldn't speak well. That's a different skill, right? So you can be accurate and not fluent. You can be fluent and not accurate. You can be fluent and have terrible pronunciation. Those people with like really stereotypical accents in films, like the guy who speaks like that with the Russian accent, or you go to Italy, we speak like this. Are those people not fluent? Of course they're fluent. Having a strong accent doesn't mean you're fluent. You're not fluent, right? Fluency and pronunciation are a different thing. So what does fluency mean? Just being able to speak freely without too much trouble forming sentences. That's fluency, right? Now, fluency is something that most people won't achieve because, well, you need to work hard to get there. Or unless you are lucky enough to spend a lot of time with native speakers, and I'm talking about hundreds of hours of conversation, and eventually, if you know the vocab, you know the sentences, you'll develop fluency by trying to talk to people all the time. But even then, a lot of people won't, because if you struggle to speak and you are shy or introverted, and you, yeah, it's really difficult for you to start a conversation, or you really struggle to speak, and they stop talking to you, or you don't really have a conversation because you struggle to have a conversation, then weeks and months can pass and you still haven't really done much, because you're not really practicing when you're with people. You're mostly silent and like wishing you could speak. So fluency comes from a lot of practice, and if you don't mind making mistakes in front of people and you speak to people all the time, then great. But I highly recommend you do a lot of practice on your own, because then when you're talking to people, it's going to be much smoother, much easier, and less embarrassing. And even if you are shy, even if you're introverted, you'll still manage to have a conversation, because you'll be using sentences that you've learned and saying things that you've said on your own before. So my advice to get fluent, to improve your fluency as fast as possible, is, of course, language islands first. Everything you want to be able to say, write it down, translate it, listen to it, repeat it aloud over and over and over again. Really important, right? That's going to be a game changer. And then a lot of speaking on your own. You record yourself speaking, and you try again and again and again, talking about everything, like any kind of topic imaginable. Like, talk about absolutely everything on your own. Short sessions, a few minutes maximum, and you record it, you listen to them, everything you weren't able to say, you write it down, translate it, and repeat those sentences aloud again, and you try again. You can also record yourself speaking, talking about something, and then later on you try talking about the same topic. You listen to what you were trying to say, and you then try again talking about the same topic. And the second time will be easier, right? Paul Nation really recommends this exercise. They call it 4-3-2 or 3-2-1 or something like that. So you've got 3 minutes to talk about something, and then you've got 2 minutes to talk about the same thing, and then you've got 1 minute to talk about the same thing. So each time you spend less time thinking, each round, and you spend more time speaking. So you've got less and less time to talk about the same things, to say the same things. But it's not because you are saying less things, fewer sentences, but you're probably saying even more sentences, but you are reducing the silent periods in that 3 minutes and then 2 minutes set of time you've got to say whatever you want to say, right? So you talk to yourself about something, record it, try again, and then try again. And of course, a lot of repetition, listening and repeating, shadowing, do a lot of that as well. And then, talk to people as much as you can. But if you don't have anyone to talk to, it's not a problem. You can talk to yourself all day, right?